Hey, I'm Kelli-Leigh. Welcome back to the You Know My Voice podcast. This episode is with an actual superstar, an East London gal dem, who is a slayer on the lyrical content of huge dance records that you know. My special guest today in the studio is Carla Monroe.
Wow,
welcome.
What an intro.
God, the stats speak for themselves. I said this to you.
You're too good. That was an intro.
Honestly, and East London, not North or South.
Not North, not South.
East.
Yes.
Representing for the East.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You know I'm a big fan of yours.
Me too, same.
Oh, thank you. And actually, we were talking about it just before we started filming that the last time we actually saw each other in real life, which I can't actually believe, was pre-COVID.
Pre-lockdown.
Pre-lockdown. You and Alex Mills came over to mine and we had little just tea and chilling out and songwriting.
Yeah.
And actually, we wrote that Firebeats record.
We actually did.
We did.
I was just thinking, that was a really nice catch up, nice little morning. But we actually did work as well.
We did actually work. And that song did all right, I think. I think it did 2 million streams or something.
Yeah.
So
I love
yes
that.
to us.
Love that.
I love that. So thank you for coming in today. Your journey is really interesting. And I think, a lot of people listening are going to love to hear the kind of journeys of you being in the music industry, deciding to say goodbye to it and being brought back in by one of the biggest dance records in the last 4 or 5 years. So please tell me a bit about the early days of Carla before we get to there.
Yeah, so I suppose the most simple way to put it is that I was always singing, always really enjoyed writing songs. Even from primary school, I'd be writing songs and me and my friends did make-up dances and things in the playground.
And you're a sick dancer as well. What was your just to interject your solo music video? You did a whole
I did a little thing, just a freestyle sort of thing. But I'm not as good now as I was back then. But back then I used to kill it on the dance floor,
Yeah.
So I've always been into it, and so I think I started off just doing more kind of musical theatre, kind of singing and dancing. And then I got to kind of teenage years and I said to my mum, I want to take this more seriously now. Could you please pay for me to go to a stage school? So my mum paid for me to go to Sylvia Young, but it was just Saturday school.
Okay.
So I started going there. And that's when I was kind of opened up to more commercial music, and it wasn't so musical theatre. It wasn't just tap modern ballet. It was street dance. And then I started to sort of I guess just have a wider picture of what else was out there, I suppose. And so went to university, didn't study music. I still don't play an instrument. I'm actually ashamed to say I will learn.
You will learn. If you want to learn, what's the instrument you're going for?
It's got to be piano, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Just as a singer, it's got to be piano.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things I set myself for to do during COVID, and I haven't done it yet, but I will.
Okay, yeah.
So
you've been busy though. Come on, yeah. That's one of the things. One of my friends has a guitar teaching school, and he gave me a login to do it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I thought, just after lockdown, and so you just
still just sitting there.
Yeah, I know.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
if I do guitar, you do piano.
Yes,
and we'll start a girl band. We'll enter Britain's Got Talent.
Yes,
so
let's do it. That is a plan. That is a plan.
Simon, be ready for us.
No. So went to stage school. Went to university. Didn't study music. Studied sociology. But somehow I ended up sharing halls with other people that really enjoyed making music. And so we just started messing about and just making songs when we weren't in lectures and stuff. And my boyfriend, who's now my husband, was also a producer. So we all just kind of used to just link up and just have little jamming sessions and stuff. And that's really how I started to, my first experience, I'd say, of songwriting, writing my own songs.
Yeah.
And then I finished university, and it was that big question of, what are you going to do with your life now? You're going to go out and get a job that you've studied all this time for.
Yeah. What were you thinking with the sociology then? Your major?
I just really found the study of people interesting. I'm just a people person. So I was just let me study that. But I also went in initially trying to study psychology, and I actually failed my first year. So they were we can either change course or you could just leave. So I was okay, let's change sociology. And it actually worked out so much better.
Right.
It was something that was genuinely interested in. So so left university, and I suddenly had all these demos, all these songs that we'd been writing over the 4 years and stuff. And I was like, it'd just be a shame to just like forget about them, because there's a real passion in there. Like I really enjoyed writing music and I enjoyed singing. It's what I'd always done.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to get a part-time job because now I've got this degree. I have to do something with it. I've got to survive.
Yeah.
So I got a part-time job and I thought, what can I do with these demos? So I was like, I'm just going to put out my own music, because back then, I guess I was quite inexperienced, didn't really know how you put out a song and stuff like that. But I thought the first step is obviously to get the good songs mastered and mixed and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we sent the songs to a mix engineer who happened to be sharing the same building as somebody who used to work for Sony.
Oh, okay.
He's mixing the song, and then this guy...
Was this a friend of yours, this mix engineer?
No, this was just somebody we randomly found.
Oh, right,
just
okay.
mixed the song. This was me and my boyfriend.
Yeah.
So he was mixing the song, and I think the guy who was sharing the building with was like, who is this? Like, I've not heard this song before. This is really good. And so that's how I got introduced, back then, to my first kind of industry contact, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that really kind of helped to open some doors for me. I would say over the next 2 or 3 years, that kind of fizzled out, and then I was back to square one again. It kind of felt like I was still writing songs, still wanting to put out the music. I'd put out a few songs, but not really seen anything that tangible come from those songs.
Were those your songs?
They were my songs, yeah.
And who were they on? Were they just independent?
Just put out independently, exactly. And I think it was just a good experience for, okay, how do you do this thing? How does the industry work?
Yeah.
Getting to know a little bit of the business side of things. What does being an artist really look like? So that's probably my first experience of that.
And what was the genre of that music you were putting out then?
I would say it's always been quite experimental, to be honest. I wouldn't say it was like R&B kind of stuff, but definitely I would say probably between pop and R&B. It was more in that sort of space.
Yeah.
So at the end of those 2 or 3 years, after working with that manager, that guy from Sony ended up managing me.
Oh.
Working with that manager, I kind of felt like I was back to square one. I was like, okay, I'm at this crossroads again. I need to survive. I need to pay my bills.
Yeah.
But I'm not really seeing anything tangible from music. So what do I do? And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to, one more time, just try and send out some of these songs that I've written, over the past, at that point, it would have been 2 or 3 years. Let me try and send these out and see if anything comes back, from that. And at that point, my relationship with my manager at the time had sort of like fizzled out. I mean, it ended very amicably.
Yeah.
But we just sort of reached a mutual agreement that, part ways.
Yeah.
So I sent it out to some new management companies. And one management company got back to me and was like, do you want to come in for a meeting? So we like some of these songs. So I was like, okay, great. This is gonna be the moment now. Again,
yes.
This is gonna be the moment. So I went to the meeting and they were like, yeah, we love it. Let's just see how this management thing goes. Like, let's just trial this thing out for a few months. Generally, as you know, that's how it goes. You don't really jump into any sort of management deal straight away.
Yeah.
So they started sending me some instrumentals, and one of them happened to be 17. So I wrote to it and sent it off, and then they were like, oh yeah, these guys really like it. Can you send us the stems? So sent the stems over. And then it all went really quiet.
Was the instrumental as it was that we know it now?
It was pretty much the same. I think MK added, his own touch to it, but a lot of it is pretty much
what it was.
Yeah. Exactly. So I wrote to that and didn't hear anything back. It was just silence. So at this point, me and the management company were still working together, but the communication was a little bit fractured. They were sending me predominantly dance instrumentals, which at that point I wasn't really feeling. I was just like, my lane is more kind of pop, R&B. I'm writing to these dance tracks, but I don't feel like I'm very good at it. I'm not getting that much success. I'm not getting that much feedback. So that fizzled out as well. So we're back to square one again.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to quit this music thing now. Like, I think I've given it a fair go. I've been here twice now and still not really got to the point of where I feel like I'm making waves.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to hit the nail on the head now and just not do music anymore. I'm just going to focus on what I got my degree for, which was just to get a normal, regular 9 to 5 job and forget about the music. that's what I did. I got a job working in a prison.
Why the prison?
Well, like I said, I've always been really interested in people.
Yeah.
I've always had this passion for like helping people and always like helping the underdog.
I love that.
Like, I don't know why, I'm just drawn to those kind of people.
Yeah.
I used to do like a lot of youth work and stuff like that, and I always found it really rewarding. So I think this is obviously a very extreme level level of that. Yeah. So I was just like, I just want to do something that's completely different.
Yeah.
I want to go to a job where it doesn't feel like it's a 9 to 5 or where it's very mundane. Every day will be different. I'll meet different people from different walks of life. And that's really why I went into it. I just thought it'd be really interesting. So I worked there for 4 years.
Where was this prison?
Belmarsh.
Wow. So, you went hardcore.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I really did.
You went from music industry to the prison. I just love this.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a completely like change of lifestyle for me. I used to wake up at 4 o'clock every morning, drive 2 hours to get to work. Oof. Yeah, it was a lot. And at first, really, really like quite daunting because it's like a completely different kind of job. That job is not for everybody.
What was your role?
So I was a resettlement worker.
Wow, okay.
So what you do basically is you're trying to help people kind of get into interventions while they're in custody to hopefully help them to rehabilitate for when they are released.
Amazing.
So, for example, getting them involved in like detox programs or helping them with housing and stuff like that. To hopefully, reduce the risk of them reoffending.
Yeah.
So it was very rewarding. Like, I would even say now it's probably one of the best jobs I've had, just in terms of like the most humbling experience and not judging people, like realizing that everybody has their own story, and sometimes people make mistakes, sometimes people do things for survival, like you just not to be a judgmental person, basically.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really, really good experience for me. Like I said, it's not for everybody. Like, it's also very tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that for 4 years, and I literally thought that was it. I was just going to work there, cash in my pension, like my retirement.
Yeah. I think you would have been great there. Your energy, you've got a lot of light and presence, and you're very calm. So I can see how that would have been a really great presence for those people that were,
Hopefully. So like I'm 4 years into that job, and then I just get a random phone call saying, "Is this Carla?" So I'm like, yeah. And they were like, "So we've got this demo. Did you write a song called 17 like 4 years ago?" So I was like, vaguely, I think I remember writing a song called 17. It was one of the songs that, the management company had sent me that I wrote to, that I didn't hear anything back about. So they were like, yeah, we've got this demo with this voice on it. We've managed to track you down. There's a DJ that's really interested in it, and we just want to know, can he put it out? So I was just like, I guess so. Like, I don't do music anymore, which was like the first red flag. I'm like, I don't do music. I literally don't care.
Oh, no.
Because at that time I was really bitter.
Yes,
because,
of course.
I was obviously in this new job now, but I would still like listen to the radio and hear songs, and I'd be like, oh, I've got a song that sounds just like that, or, I could write that chorus. And you start to become quite bitter and resentful about it. So when they were like, oh, we've got this song, can we put it out? I was just like, whatever, just do whatever you want to do. I literally don't care.
Please tell me that a contract did eventually come along.
Yeah, so I wasn't completely silly, like how I approached it. So I thought, okay, I don't have any representations. I don't have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been doing this for a minute. What should I do? So I thought, let me call that management company that sent me the instrumental to begin with. That's a good starting point, because they will be able to help me navigate this.
Yes.
So I phoned them, and they were like, oh, this is amazing news. We can certainly like intro you to some lawyers and things like that. So everything was fine. Like, everything went the way that it should have, in that sense. Like, I had representation.
And did they obviously want their management commission for that?
Yeah, of course, because they did do the work. They sent me the instrumental.
Yeah.
So they were like, look, listen, we don't know if it's going to be number 9 in the chart or number 90 in the chart, but we just want to put the song out and see what it does. And remember, at this point, I'm in a completely different phase of my life. I'm not expecting it to do anything either. So I'm just like, fine, do it. So they said, oh, we're just going to go for a non-feature on this. So I was like, yeah, cool, that's fine. I don't do music anymore.
Okay.
Just put it out. That's absolutely fine. Like I said, I'm not imagining it's going to do anything.
Right.
Of course, the song comes out. Different story.
Why are we always tested?
Why?
Why?
Literally, why? I'm still asking that question. Why? So yeah, the song comes out. It ends up becoming a top 10. And at that point, I was still working in the prison.
So the whole time this was happening, because I think it went to number 7. Is that right? In the
Yeah,
top 10?
that's right. Yeah. So at this point, I'm still working in the prison because I don't know whether people realise it, but just because your song's on radio, it doesn't mean you're getting paid yet.
Yes.
From the music.
Yes.
Eventually, you will get paid that, but it's not an immediate thing.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like negotiating publishing contracts and stuff like that. But working at the prison, you have to be very mindful of like data protection and not sharing too much personal information and things like that. So I couldn't tell them that it was me on the radio. So I'd be working in the office.
And hearing yourself.
My song would come on the radio and not be able to say that it's me, which is the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
So on my last day, I think the song was playing. I was like packing up my stuff on my desk. And one of my colleagues was like, oh my God, I love this song. Who sings this song? And at that point, I could have just been like, MK. I was like, me. And he was like, what? And I was like, it's my voice. He's like, no way. And I was like, yes, that's why I'm leaving. I'm leaving to do music full time. And he was like, no, I'm going to Google this. And he Googled it, and obviously my name came up and everything. But yeah, so that was the point. That
I kind of really want to see the musical theatre aspect of this, of you jumping on the desk with a pen and just live PAing, like, for your life.
Yeah, I know. That would have been a scene in the prison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Highlight of the day.
Then, oh my God, this will happen in the future when they do your musical. Like people come in with brooms
breaking
and
out
stuff.
of the prison.
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
breaking out. Yeah.
Cartwheels.
Yeah. So that was the day that my life changed, I would say. Yeah, and I've never looked back since. Like, obviously I've been doing music since then full time.
Yes.
Which is how I wanted this thing to go, but it's happened organically without me forcing it or sending my demos to a million different, management companies. And I just felt like the minute that I let it breathe and let it do its thing and I turned my back, it found me.
Yes.
So I feel like it happened in the right way.
Yeah. And you're meant to do this job. And it also proves again, which I love, is the fact that you did write it 4 years ago. So the power of the song that you wrote is still, it's an amazing song, because it does feel like that sometimes in this business, that you write stuff and you're like, I really think this is great. And then people are like, no, you do hear nothing. And you're like, I know there's something in this.
Because I think they all have their time.
Yes, exactly. So leaving that then, so you went back with the management you had?
Yes, and they managed me from that point, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So then moving on next, because basically that record, if I remember the stats, have done over 213 million streams on Spotify alone.
Wow.
Which is...
I didn't even know that.
It's a huge record. So then they want to get you straight back in the studio, because you did do another one for MK.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
So actually, the second song that I released with MK, which was 2 a.m, was actually written in my very first ever writing camp. So I went there like as a little newbie, not really knowing what to do.
So this is fresh out prison.
That sounds so wrong.
And you were fresh out prison.
Fresh out the jail.
Fresh out the jail cell.
So I think it probably was. I think, it was must have been not very long after.
Right.
I was very new to it all. I wrote that in a writing camp. And then how these things work is that you write the songs and then they kind of do the rounds and then see if anybody likes them and that kind of stuff. And that one sat around for 2 years.
Wow.
So there you go again. Like, just because you've written what you think is a great song today doesn't mean that tomorrow somebody's going to...
This is one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean about timing. So that sat around for 2 years. Fair enough, there was interest in it, but nobody had actually said, like, this is, what we want for our project kind of thing. And it found its way back into MK's hands. And he produced it. And at this point, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn from my lesson. On the first song, on 17, I was just like, meh. Not bothered about the feature. Yeah, exactly. This time I was like, no, I'm going to get that feature.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Because you also realise the power of it. And I think especially for us as vocal artists in dance, and women in this industry, that our name is just so important. I mean, I remember when Be Here for Duke Dumont, which was the fourth record I did for Duke, it was supposed to have my name on it, and there was a whole drama with putting my name on it. Duke did not want to put my name on this record, although it should have had my name on it. And I was just so disheartened by the whole thing. I was like, you know what, fine, don't worry. And I was advised by management at the time that it's fine, like it's just good for you to have the cut. And then when it was mentioned on radio and Annie Mac made it the hottest record, they went out of their way to make sure my name wasn't anywhere near it, even though I co-wrote it as well.
Wow.
And then years later, you still have people going, oh my God, I didn't know you wrote that record. I didn't know. And you realise actually how important it is just to have our name there.
Trust me. Like I did this post on TikTok, which was just like songs you might not know that I've written. I put 17. Obviously, that's the first song.
Yeah.
And that video went like semi-viral just because people found out, like people felt like they'd found out something new.
Yeah.
They've discovered something.
Yes.
Like they didn't know that it was me behind the song. They know the voice, they know the song, they know MK.
Yeah.
But they don't know who the voice is.
Exactly, because a lot of people don't have time to look into the credits.
I know.
I mean, that's more of an industry thing.
Yeah.
But then the general public are listening to the music. For a long time, people thought Jax Jones sang I Got You. And, it wasn't until obviously it was like, well, hold on, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
So I love that you were like, no, this one's going to have my name on it.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of these things, like you can just put down to experience, but you have to learn from them. Do you know what I mean? So for me, the second time around, I was like, no, I'm going to do this the right way this time, and not like sell myself short.
Yes. Yeah. And did you feel support from that as well? From them going, yeah, that's fine? Or
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is the right thing.
Yes, definitely. I think it was because I wasn't like forceful enough at the beginning. Also, I wasn't educated at that point. Fair enough, I'd put out my own kind of small releases and stuff prior to that. But this was my first major, my first release on a major record label.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too like up to speed with like how it all works and everything. For me, it was just all very, very new. So I was just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. The song's probably not going to do anything. My other songs that I put out didn't do anything, so I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you learn from that.
you learn from that. So then after jumping to 22 Love, that's what's in my brain, that's done 2 million streams and that's yours.
Just me.
That's just you, which also shows what you can do as an artist. So how have you been finding that journey? In fact, actually, before we even get there, let me just quickly interject with another massive record that you've done, which is D.O.D. Still Sleepless, which is one of my favourites.
Oh,
I love that record. So was that kind of hot off the heels of, obviously, 2am and 17 and you being possibly having the phone off the hook to write another smash for a DJ?
Well, the thing is with Still Sleepless, D.O.D. had already put out the instrumental, which was starting to get a bit of momentum and a bit of traction because the instrumental was amazing.
Yes.
It was kind of doing its thing on its own. So I'm not going to take credit for that. That was already doing its thing. And I think the instrumental was sent to Laura Welsh, who's another songwriter who I work very closely with. She was like, do you want to help me write something to this? They want something on it that is just basically going to complement what's there, but something that will just help it to cross over from the clubs to the radio. We were like, okay, I was like, cool, I'm more than happy to write this. I love the instrumental. And that's what we did. So we sat down on a Zoom. I think this must have been towards the end of lockdown. Sat down on a Zoom and tried to bash out loads and loads of ideas, but it took us a while to get that little bit that you hear on Still Sleepless. Like people think, oh, it's just a line. It's easy to come up with that, but actually they are the ones that are actually harder because it's so limiting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So did you guys write something and then keep coming back or how?
Yeah, exactly. So we wrote a few ideas, sent them over and they were like, still not right. It probably took around about 8 different versions.
Really?
And I mean, like when I say 8 versions, that's like writing full songs and just picking out certain bits and not it not being right. And then I've been sitting here thinking about you lately, having second thoughts about you, baby, was actually written as a verse. Yeah, it was actually the verse. So my other half, who's my vocal engineer and a producer, he was like, when I was recording it, he was like, that's the hook there. And I was like, no, that's the verse. You know, because you think you know everything.
Yeah, totally.
I know what's right.
Yeah.
He was like, no, that's definitely the hook. But we sent it off, and then Dan was like, yeah, he's right. That's definitely the hook. That's the bit. Yeah.
I love this because when you listen to a record like that, you know, and obviously that gets sent around. So artists like myself, it's like, we want something like D.O.D, Still Sleepless.
Oh, and it's so hard.
I know. I think one of my favourite days was when I got sent Low Steppers Running to myself to write. I was like, oh, that's good. So I wrote that one.
You know, you've done a good job.
I made it. Yeah, exactly. They've sent my own song.
Yeah.
But I love that because it's so powerful, that little hook that has made that record, which is what everybody sings back. But to hear you actually talk about the process of that,
it's
not
hard.
as simple. Yeah,
and you know what it's like. Just getting that little nugget.
Yes,
is challenging.
So 22 Love, was that was before or after Still Sleepless?
It was in the same year, so around the same time.
Okay, and was that was an independent record as well? Who was that out through?
Two Tone. Big up Sharav. I love Sharav.
Yes,
he also signed Shapes as well. So,
yes.
Love him and got a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, because that record did like 2 million streams. So you're kind of thinking like putting that out independent to get that kind of traction as well.
Yeah.
This should be a no-brainer, right? So you should be having people bang on your door to sign Carla Monroe, because Carla Monroe is a proven hit maker.
Well, you'd think so, but like given my track record and like the amount of times I thought something was going to happen and it didn't happen, you just can never call it, really. So I think at that point, definitely people were very interested in like features and stuff like that. But for my own project, I think honestly, I kind of wanted to have a bit of a different direction, because after 22 Love, the feedback was, it's a great song, but it feels like something that we've heard you sing before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So at that point, I was just like, okay, so maybe I need to go back to the drawing board a little bit, maybe bring back some of those early R&B pop influences that, you know, I was using. Exactly. Yeah. That like I was brought up, you know, listening to and stuff, and actually try to put more of that into my music, and maybe that will give me an identity as an artist.
Yes.
So that's what I did, and I just went back to the drawing board for a good year. It was 6 months to a year, just trying to write material that felt like it was authentically me.
Yes.
Not saying that the songs I've got out are not authentically me.
No. But also you're writing those in a vein for another artist. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas this was just something that I wanted to write for myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And I'm hoping that this year I will get the opportunity to actually put out these songs and actually just put out the music and not have to like overthink it. Just put out songs that I love and not have to worry about, you know, seeking approval or anything like that from anybody else. Just putting out the music and just being content with that.
So what have the conversations been with for yourself as an artist with the labels then that you've been putting your music to?
The conversations have just been very, to be honest with you, they have been quite positive. When I've put the songs out, people have been very interested. But I think when we're in this game, a lot of it is about what's trending. A lot of it is about what's popular at the moment. And if you don't fit into that kind of trend, or it's not fitting within those genres, sometimes it can be quite hard to kind of nail those deals. You'd think it would be easy, but it's really difficult.
I think the thing that I am struggling with, and the reason why I wanted to make this podcast, is because for artists like ourselves and all vocal artists that have been on big dance records, it does feel like we're held to a higher standard and a higher benchmark.
Yeah, and I think also being female is a big thing.
Being female, being women of colour. And it's kind of like, what more do you need for us to prove what we can do to get the support to try and get something out there?
Yeah.
And I feel like DJs and newer DJs on scene and male artists, they can put a cool cut here and sign a record here, or sign, you know, this one's a major single and then this one. And we don't seem to to warrant that same opportunity, you know, and there's no development for us. So we have to keep doing the self-development.
Yeah.
And then feature on another record, because also this is part of how we pay our bills and grow our artist careers is, you know, writing for other artists,
100%.
featuring records. You know, how do you feel about, do you feel like you've seen the inequality of that with the work that you've put out there and what you're due as an artist yourself?
Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes it feels like you can go to a label with, you know, a song that you've written solely for yourself. And the first thing that sort of comes to mind is, okay, who can we get to feature on this song? Or what DJ can we do a collab with? Or who can we send it to?
Yeah.
And I think some of that is obviously just the business side of it, saying, okay, well, this DJ has, you know, certain amount of monthly listeners or a certain amount of followers. This could help the song, propel the song even further, which I get that side of it. But then the other part of it is, well, sometimes it feels like it kind of devalues what I've done, because actually I've come to you as somebody that wants to put out my own song.
Yes.
Is it possible in this industry to actually put out a song that doesn't feature a DJ, a dance song that doesn't feature a DJ? It's just me.
And also because they're often looking for a DJ to have a record which doesn't have the featured vocalist name on it. So how does that again work? It's kind of like, hey, we've got this record, we really want you to sing it and write it, but we don't want your name on it. Oh, and hey, we really like your record, but for this to do well, we're going to need to put the DJ's name on it.
Yeah.
There's a real, you know, there's a fighting going on here, and it kind of, you're like, why does this have to keep happening? This injustice that keeps happening. And, you know, it's been really great to see Jazzy's career in the last
100%,
year.
yeah.
Because, you know, she being a featured vocalist on a record, the Belters Only record, to then get taken her own career forward, to then end up having a top 10 record.
Yeah, 100%.
And for me, that was just like, this is what can happen.
Yeah.
When you back the vocal artists on the record.
Yes.
Because really what we all need is marketing.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and marketing up to a certain budget that necessarily when we're independent we can't afford, because that is major label cash.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, from you writing those records and also speaking to labels and not having the result that you should have, in my opinion.
Although I must say, I do still think it's timing. These songs will see the light of day.
Which you've proven.
Yeah, exactly. Give it another 3 years, we'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your steps moving forward to then put out you as an artist, Carla Monroe?
Well, this year, I'm just determined to put out the songs with or without a label. Whether I have to do that independently is fine.
Yes.
You know, I just feel like I've put so much of my heart and soul into writing these songs that I love, songs that I'm passionate about. And I just want to share them with the world. That's literally it. It's that simple. So if a major label or whatever, whoever is not going to back me, that's fine. I'll back myself and put out my own songs.
Yes.
That's literally where I'm at with this now.
Yes, absolutely. And more power to you. I think that, you know, that's where I got to myself. And putting out my own records for me is like musically breathing, is how I call it. And it makes me feel, because, you know, when you briefly mentioned some of that resentment you felt listening to songs on the radio, you know, and the same thing, I kind of hit a bit of a dark place. I felt a bit of resentment for being called up to sing more records for newly signed artist careers and being left by the wayside. And I thought the only way I can express myself is to let myself be out there, you know, at least, and see that growth of my fan base growing as well. Because if you don't put the music out, it doesn't exist.
Yes, exactly.
It exists here, and in the Dropbox of doom.
Oh God!
You just play on
Dropbox of doom.
You know, but I just think it's powerful, because look what you already did with 2 of your other solo records.
100%, and all it takes is an A&R, you know, to just believe in you and see beyond the numbers. Or I don't have a huge amount of Instagram followers or a huge amount of TikTok followers. You need somebody who is judging you by the music and not by all those other external factors.
Yes.
You know, I do believe that the music speaks for itself.
I totally believe that as well. Carla Monroe, you are incredible. You're an inspiration as a songwriter and artist. You absolutely prove that writing the music will find its way.
Yes.
So I'm extremely excited, and I know podcast listeners will be extremely excited for your solo project.
Oh.
So you've got our full support. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And I think we're going to need a round 2 at some point. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.